There is evidence that South Africa was paid by Iran to raise that case up at the ICJ. And so our nation is once and for all officially one of the proxies that is sponsored by Iran to be a terror mongrel against Israel. It makes sense why Naledi Pandor speaks the way that she speaks, Cyril Ramaphosa, all of these random leftist politicians in this country. It makes sense. They took money from Iran. It wasn't an idea that they out here just, pulled up out of their own hat like a rabbit in a magician's show. They were paid by Iran, and then they made Israel's life a living nightmare and completely ignored genocide that happened on October 7 and hurt the people of God, and so therefore hurt God, and so also in so doing hurt themselves as a people, a nation, because God will judge those who have basically a field day with Israel. Zechariah 12, that cup of staggering in the Middle East, all the nations who try to heave it away will be surely cut into pieces. And so now South Africa is facing all that cutting into pieces, and I've just explained to you what the cutting into pieces of South Africa is going to look like. Your nation is going to be unrecognizable, and all the leaders, the government officials, and even the ones that are vying for positions of honor in this country that you see today are not going to be running this country in the future. Your nation is going to be taken back, fixed essentially, put back together as with sticky tape by only Gen Alphas, but millennials will drown, so too will Gen Zs. And so too, older Gen Zs will drown, millennials drown, of course baby boomers are already drowning, and so too is the Gen X already drowning. But this nation is not going to be recovered to any kind of semblance of a normal country until the Gen Zs essentially do that which God says, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, I will come down from heaven and hear their prayers and I will heal their land. Only the Gen Zs are going to cry out to God, just like with Seth. After Seth was born, it's written in God's word in the book of Genesis that from that time people began to call on the name of the Lord. From the time of the Gen Zs, that's not Gen Zs, but maybe late Gen Zs, but Gen Alphas, from then only are they going to start to call on the name of the Lord. They're like Seth that way. And so the Lord is going to grant it to them to recover the nation. But the rest of y'all, I'm about to explain just how ghoulish your magic is. Just how ghoulish your stuff is. You're trying to infiltrate African spirituality in this country. You're trying to make African spirituality like a whole thing, just hanging out, making like a tent, swinging on a hammock, like it's happy at the beach or whatever. You're trying to make nasty magic be a thing in this country to a point of creating very dystopian realities, dystopian lives for certain people who won't ever capitulate to your agenda. But it's not going to be African spirituality that catches root, because after all, our government is already secretly in the shadows made itself a proxy to Iran. Muslim takeover, here we come. Already most of our grocery foods, stuffs are halal. A whole chunk of them, not so much most. They already infiltrated our food industry so proper. Ambani made your Muslim country. That's what it's about to be. That's what Ambani made your Muslim country. That's what it's about to become. So the Palestinians rocking up at the airport over there, okay, apparently South Africa didn't want them here, but why did they land? How did they land? Like, no aeroplane, no aerial phenomenon, just land. First of all, hovers over a country's airspace, and then lands at a country's airport without all different kinds of bodies knowing. So you can't say that you didn't know. You brought them here, and some of them have got some hard knock likely Hamas members or people with extreme ideologies. And Iranian Muslims, I get it because they stick to each other. They won't be out creating their own little 15-minute cities like proper. You think that Klaus Schwab's ideas of a 15-minute city and Noah Yuval Harari, the World Economic Forum, you think they'll be coming all up in our grill with like smoke up our nostrils, causing us to choke and everything, asphyxiate with their 15-minute city suggestion? You be thinking that they're all out here wreaking a whole chunk of havoc in everybody's lives, right? You think that they're wreaking havoc in everybody's uneasy lives. You proper imagine that they're wreaking havoc in wonky bonky bonka bantu's lives. Yeah, you be thinking that. But understand, Muslims have already figured out that there is value to Klaus Schwab's little idea of 15-minute cities, because they rock up in an atmosphere, right? In an ecosystem, some kind of like a geographical location. They chill there. They don't assimilate with their neighbors. They don't mix. They build mosques, and they just go to the nearest, like everything that they need is just within arm's reach. They build schools. They train children their own ideologies. Like I found out apparently the other day in the United States of America that in Texas there's been 200 mosques built since 2025 begun. I stand corrected as to that number. 200. What are you doing with 200 mosques, yo? What are you doing? Donald Trump only now, after waking up from a slumber, calling the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. He was supposed to do that already long ago. But that's what Islam does. Like, you be out there yawning and snoozing with a graveyard shift, your head bobbing. Your head bobbing. Do you understand? And then when you open your eyes again and drink a cup of coffee, there's like 7 mosques in front of you, and like 12 different women living in one house to one husband, out here popping these Muslim babies. I found out that in the US, these men, they like put a whole bunch of women in one house. They live there. The one man is like, not one house, sorry, but they buy like 10 houses in a neighborhood, and then there's like 5 families, 10 families living uniquely, where each individual wife has their own house, sorry, but they've got one husband. Muslims do stuff like that. They've all got one husband, and their intention is to populate that neighborhood until it gets nice and big, and and then squeezes everybody else in the periphery. And I also found out that I get Donald Trump stopped food stamps, right? Well, I don't know what's since then happened. But complaining like Thanksgiving, did you eat? You fat Americans that are complaining that everybody took away your dessert, did you eat? Are you thin? Did you loot? I don't know what happened, right? Apparently, amidst the corruption with these food stamps was just a whole bunch of immigrants, right? And apparently, a good like over 50% of food stamps in the U.S., essentially food aid, goes to foreigners that are not even documented in the U.S. I guess that's why Donald Trump stopped. Is it called EBT or whatever, food stamps? But I found out what Muslim families are doing in that particular regard, right? This one dude that's got like 7 wives living in 7 different houses are all looking like single mothers, even though they're married to one man, and they keep on making babies for this one man. You be out here in 1 year getting like 12 different women pregnant by the same guy, and these women are pregnant every single year. So if in one household you get this one apparently single woman that's actually married to one Muslim polygamist, if at all in 3 years she's got 3 new babies. In 4 years, she's got 4 new babies, because like 1 a year, right? Only taking a couple of months in between, and then you pop a new one. Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do with like a single woman with 4 babies? You're gonna put them on food stamps. You're gonna give them, yeah. Apparently, they are draining the food stamp system, the welfare system of the U.S. by claiming that they don't have a husband, they don't have a sole provider, they don't have anything, but they're all married to the same guy, but they are claiming welfare as single women. Yeah, listen, Muslims do stuff like that. They do stuff like that, and what is their intention? We need to be able to feed children. Sometimes it gets a little bit expensive. We don't know how to finance all this stuff, so we're going to go and drain the resources of a country and claim that we're poor little widows or poor little single women with 4 children or whatever. But by the time 5 years ends, it's like a neighborhood with a cool 50,000 Muslims, all born from like, the year 2000 and whatever, from just multiple polygamists out here having multiple wives in the same neighborhood. And now that neighborhood has got like 400 mosques. I'm a tiki There's like 400 mosques in that neighborhood, and I mean, really, we gotta expand now. I told you Islam is ultimately gonna fizzle out because people are gonna get sick and tired of it. They're Ishmael, so they are every man against him and him against every man. It's not gonna win, but it's gonna get really close. What is happening over here? Islam is not gonna win, but I mean, it's gonna get like crazy close. Okay, yeah, Muslims do that. So do not look at one little aeroplane landing at some clandestine airport in, was it Lenasia or what? Listen, I don't know. Don't be gazing at that one little airplane full of Palestinians and expect, oh, it's just one little measly dot of a full stop meter, pumpul and zumpasantin of an airplane full of Middle Eastern jihadi. Or little jihadi babies. You know how that guy called Jihad in the UK? That kid that killed those 2 Jews in the synagogue? His name was Jihad. So, I mean, yeah, their papa ought to be naming their babies Jihad. So, you can, of course, say stuff like, oh, there's just like, 7 pregnant women in that airplane with 7 little baby jihadis, but it's just nothing. It's just little jihadis, and it's just 7 little pregnant women in a, airplane, and they're so hungry. Greta's flotilla didn't get to them on time, so let's have mercy on them. Where do they stay? Where are they living? Who's taking care of them? Who's financing their housing? I'm pretty sure they're not hobos in Hillbrow. Yeah, you know that our government is out here being hypocritical. A country that's majority black, and they're not even housing black people that are on the streets, but they are providing housing for Muslims coming from another country. South Africa is a patsy for Islam. Shilo, we are too divided as black people for us to actually entrench whatever is our ideology over here. And seeing as your ideology is ancestral worship and all this black magic and this darkness and your dystopia, you're not going to win. You're going to have Muslim little 15-minute cities making like the World Economic Forum's spawn, or what do they call this thing, like guinea pig? They're like the guinea pig of Klaus Schwab, eh? They're the guinea pig of the World Economic Forum. We told you that you must eat the bugs and live in the 15-minute city. World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, they would absolutely love the Muslim archetype or prototype of basically doing a thing, because these people know how to have 15-minute cities. They stay within, they don't assimilate, they don't mix, they don't travel very far. Their schools are within their neighborhoods, their mosques are within their neighborhoods, their education is within their neighborhoods. They be out here hooking up small little shops selling food in their own little neighborhoods. If they travel out, it's to get supplies. Like in a zombie apocalypse, they go out there to meet the rest of these random like infidels in order to go and get tons of snowflake flour, and tons of carrots, tons of whatnot. We'll get them from the infidels, but then we're gonna bring them back inside, much like in a zombie apocalypse, where you be out here going to get supplies and you meet a couple of zombies, but when you come back, you got bags of flour. Yeah, Muslims got 10-minute cities, 15-minute cities. They be building them. It's their mission, it's their strategy, and polygamy is their thing. Women are willing to let themselves be married over to like 20,000 guys, and South Africa is already a polygamy haven. This nation is already a polygamy haven. So you can trust that just like a pathogen or an exponential growth curve, just like a pathogen or an exponential growth curve, the proliferation of just one small little airplane of Palestinians in 5 years is cataclysmic. It is utterly catastrophic and cataclysmic. I am not out here telling any kind of fib. Yangela Manji. 1-4. Yeah, that's the thing. The proliferation of what they're doing is cataclysmic. They're gonna go and grab all the Palestinian women in that airplane, put them in one little neighborhood, give them separate housing maybe. One dude is gonna impregnate them just back to back over a couple of years, and though that small little plane of Palestinians is going to now be enough after 5 years to fill 4 planes of Palestinians. These caliphates, these Muslim caliphates, will then be formed in your countries, and little bubbly neighborhoods will rock up, bubbles of neighborhoods will rock up, their own little 15-minute cities, right? Will rock up amidst you, and they will refuse to assimilate into that culture. They will refuse to learn your ways and whatnot. If anything, they will be trying to proselytize you or evangelize you for their cause, reach you, convert you. They will be trying to convert every last one of you. And so we're going to be getting a mushrooming of a whole bunch of black people converting to Islam, white people, etc. And when then there's like enough of them roaming these streets, that's when they start to do jihad. That's when they start to terrorize, because they've got enough numbers. That's when what's happening in Nigeria happens in a country, where they will go into a village, Elimbobo, Tabang, or they will go into like some small little church, Soweto, Tabang, and they'll just start shooting people. When they get big enough in number, that's when they get emboldened to just shoot people. Because if they're still too small, like what it is that they are in the US, for instance, all they can do is riot and march, and there is a doubling down on them as soon as it becomes clear that there's like some kind of terroristic activity going on over here. And the country is maintained largely as a Christian country, but it's becoming really bizarre. And then, however, like look at what's going on in the United Kingdom. They've succeeded to create these 15-minute cities. We're ahead of our times, aren't they? But you know what? Yuval Harari. And they're not so much looking out for carbon emissions or methane emissions. They're just looking out for the proliferation of their thing that they're doing, their cult. That's what Islam does. And we had like a whole Palestinian aeroplane land on our shores, and apparently there's been a whole bunch of them just kind of landing. Unbeknownst to us, that one however caught the media's news, and there is nothing that can ever fly in your airspace and land in an airport in your country that can land in an airport in your country that you don't know is what guy, and you not be curious and surveil it and essentially just wonder, is this not a hostile threat? You will remember the Chinese spy balloon that, however, was ignored by the Biden administration. Ignored as it might have been, nonetheless, there were a whole bunch of news networks speaking about how it is that, listen, there is a Chinese spy balloon out here hovering around over our seas. What is this thing? Over our nation. What is this thing? What is this thing? And then there's the unidentified aerial phenomenon that out here be hovering around military base sites, and then they get hit with a Dragon Ball Z. Listen, I know that's not what is going on over there, but it sounds like Dragon Ball Z of a Hellfire missile. sounds like something that could come from Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. Hellfire missile. You know, remember those UAVs that were hit by a Hellfire missile, and they just went through them, they disintegrated and then came back together again into the same blob, evidencing that it is like some weird little anomalous technology from outside. So that Dragon Ball Z Hellfire missile that hit those UAPs would, if at all there's something strange that is foreign to your country that won't validate itself as to what it is, it can get shot down, it can get brought low, just like what it is that Donald Trump keeps on doing on those seas between Puerto Rico and America, Venezuelan drug nonsense. Then he keeps on bombing and shooting to basically disincentivize drug lords from traveling at least with American waters to bring drugs on American shores. Yeah, type establishment thing. When something is hostile on your lands, on your seas, on your shore, in your airspace or in your ocean space, or if something is trying to bring something hostile to your own country, if you're any kind of responsible and patriotic for your own nation, you will Dragon Ball Z Hellfire missile it. You will literally Dragon Ball Z Hellfire missile it. You will. So if there is like a hostile aeroplane rocking up that is not on flight logs and it's not expected to come, and we don't know what's going on in our airspace. Listen, you're going to be inquiring, you're going to send news networks, you're going to investigate and interrogate deeply, and if it turns out to be hostile, you will either arrest those people, or next time they insist on sending more of their fleet over your airspace, you will just Dragon Ball Z them. You will Dragon Ball Z them. You will Dragon Ball Z Hellfire missile them. You will do exactly that. And in South Africa, no such activity. Weird little anomalous flights that are not to be found on any logs anywhere, just landing on our shores. It's because it's clandestine, and our money-hungry politicians that don't care about people are letting them land here. And these people proliferate like cultures in a petri dish. They proliferate like pathogens, like bacteria, like viruses. And before you know it, there's like 10,000 of them in a city. Before you know it, there's like 50,000. They grow exponentially. Look at what they have done to the United Kingdom. So I warned you, South Africa. I said it. Man, I get really interested because you like that monster truck, okay? Like you be doing all that. Yeah. Okay. Smooth criminal. Tick a ding ding. Tick a ding ding. Tick a butcher. Yeah, you that thing. Smooth criminals. We are just doing a strange anomalous feat. Achieving it. Mini jungle is in jam. Barking and everything like a chihuahua. Mini jungle. Anyway, whatever. Nishilo ngati le satanake la lawyer. Hule. Di busy la for momona mustrate. You're hopping up and down people's houses on roofs. Ngamafielo, ngamaboro, ngamaroto. You're flying inside brooms. You're flying on brooms and inside bread. That's what you're focused on. While your president is not throwing, like not hitting, not shooting with hellfire missiles at strange craft that land on our shores that are going to proliferate an Islam takeover in the country. Nali peace. Like a little angry puppy. The bees coming up, my skin crawling on it like acne. And you can't even see the hellfire missile failure, the bloop, the ampur, the misdemeanor of a lack of action pertaining Palestinian craft or craft coming from there, landing on our shores. Is there an airport in Gaza? How do they travel? I don't know. Maybe they went to Iran first and then South Africa. Maybe they went to Iran first and then South Africa. I don't know. But they've been landing here, and I'm pretty sure that they're not living in halfway houses. They're not living in shacks. They're not struggling to eat. They've got more than enough groceries in their car from Pick and Pay that's happy to sell more than enough halal food to them. They're very comfortable. Our air is clean. Our country is beautiful. They are happy and fatter than some blacks that are selling popukis on the side of the street. They are happy and fatter than some black people that are struggling to make ends meet. And you blacks are the ones that are so defeated that you're doing this to my particular life, while you've got a Muslim invasion up your skirt, crawling like a bad man with a perversion issue. That's what you're doing out here in these uneasy, uncomfortable, really gnarly, dusty, and athlete's footy streets. You're doing that. You're doing that. Listen, you doing that. Honey, you are doing that. And so since that's what you be achieving in these uneasy, gnarly athlete's footy streets, because everything is like athlete's foot in my life, that's a fungal infection. Given that you're spreading a pathogen of that nature, I'm gonna get rescued, sure, but whatever gangrene is gonna metastasize in your bones when I'm gone, honeys and bumble lullabies, you are not gonna be able to stand against God's wrath. You are not gonna be able to stand against God's wrath on you for idol. You will remember in the story Sir Gideon how the Israelis were afflicted by, I believe it's the Syrians. I should have googled that rather in the kitchen instead of trying to figure out that there's a cooling place for worms in hell. Anyway, but the militant group that was harassing the living daylights out of Israel in the days of Gideon used to take their food. They were bullying them. They were stealing their livestock. They were ravaging their fields and ravaging women. They were taking men and making them slaves, if not just kill them altogether. They were just weakening Israel, and they had to live, some of them, in caves, just hiding from a very hostile force. When Islam grows in a country and there's other competing religions in that ecosystem, they go full-scale jihad. They become violent. And so you also will be driven out of your houses. You also will have your churches raided and you shot while you are worshipping. And they largely first target weaker portions of that country, like what they're doing in Nigeria. They are just messing with the villages. They're actually messing with churches that aren't even properly built. They don't have a proper roof. They are just dealing with people that are still struggling financially. So first they're going to start on the Qasis, and since everybody does not care for the already poor person, there's just going to be a whole bunch of Muslim raids in Guguletu, a whole bunch of Muslim raids in the rural areas in particular. There's going, especially rural areas especially, they're going to be then brazen enough to even come into the Kasi, like I said, Guguletu, Soweto. They're going to go into rural areas, like I said, Rustenburg, Limpopo, over there, Mapumulo, KwaZulu, but in dusty zones first. And then they're going to come to like townships, is it bustling, like a Soweto, like a Guguletu. And then listen, it's only a matter of time before they are to be landing a bomb in a mosque in Sandton. It's only a matter of time before they be out ramming a vehicle or hooking up a suicide vest in a church in 4 ways. They're gonna do that. That's your country. But you see, just like in the days of Gideon, those like ravaging random, I believe it's Syrians, I stand corrected. Alright? I stand corrected. Listen, I don't know, is it the Amalekite? You're gonna have to correct me. I'll probably come back just like I corrected the fact that I called the person that was chilling with Saul in the prison cell Barnabas, and this time around I said that no, actually it's Silas. Yeah, I'll go and I'll do my fact checking eventually and then come back and correct it in my next series. But whichever the country it was that was wreaking havoc in the life of Israel, nonetheless put them in caves. They made them hide in the earth. They were starving, they were dying from famine, and all their crop, it was like worthless even to farm, I guess, because at harvest season all their grapes were gone, all their wheat was gone. All there, I could go on. So I mean, really, are you going to put an animal in a cage? So they probably even stopped herding cattle and stuff. Sheep, when you are harassed by things like Fulani militants, you will end up living in caves and stuff like that. You will cocoon yourselves, just like what's happening indeed in countries where Muslim takeovers are happening. In Nigeria, they live in fear and they are low-key kind of nomadic. They have to move from village to village, to camp, and yeah, because listen, they keep on getting harassed. They keep getting displaced in Sudan. People just keep getting displaced by very violent jihadis, moving from pillar to post trying to find where to live. And when you look at those villages, listen, they are burnt to the ground. When you look at cities where there used to be like entire FMCGs, the pizza shop with the supermarket and what have you, they're on the ground, like entirely debilitated. I was watching something of like weird little clashes, but this is not so much Islam, but this was in, I believe, Somalia. Right now, there's like crazy stuff going on over there. And this one town, not like village, if you will, the one dude decided to stay there because everybody else was running when all the militias were shooting and bombing and just ransacking and laying a joint flat. And when you look at the environment and the behind of him, like yo guys, I guess you love your home, right? And so you stick around and you try to rebuild, but how in the world are you going to stick around and rebuild somewhere where somebody has torn down? Because they're going to refuse to let you rebuild unless there is supernatural enablement of your person, just like with Nehemiah and his reforms. Hey, unless the Lord is behind you, unless the builders build in the Lord, their builders then build in vain. Unless you are building with the protections of Jesus Christ. The people who raided your wall at first, who made it desolate, the people who brought low your structures in the first place are going to keep on essentially making what it is that you're building like a sand castle. Waters will always just bring it down. The Lord is your true fortress. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and they're safe. So until you turn your hearts over to the Lord, you will try to rebuild and stay back in your village because, I mean, you know, it's your home and whatnot while all your family members run away. But if you try to build, dude, next time you're gonna die. You watched a whole bunch of your own fellow villagers pass away from these militias. Next time you're gonna die. You made it. You better do running like the rest of your family. So the brave die when they are brave apart from Christ. The brave die when their bravery has nothing to do with the Lord. The brave die when they just want to go and impend Godzilla by their meager selves. They will get stomped underfoot by its hoof. That dinosaur. When the brave do bravery, they pass away if the bravery is not in Jesus Christ. So you're not going to be able to rebuild this country, and because you're so stubborn and you love your magic, just like the people of, what do you call this thing? Of the book of Revelation, of the tribulation, they get lambasted by God's plagues. And they neither repent of their fornications, their sexual immoralities, their sorceries, their idolatries, their whatnot, and the what have you. If anything, they bash their fists at God. That is the nature of mankind when you adore That is the nature of mankind when you adore your idols, like your 50 cents in 21 questions, loving them like a fat kid loves cat. When you be adoring your idols like they that wonderful smooching lady, hey, when you adore your idols out here making out with them all the day long, understand, you will bash your fists at the judgment of God in abandoning you to your enemies and blame him for the desolation of your country instead of turn to him that you might be ensconced in war. And so hand the goddess Midianite to you. It was the Midian. He will hand the Midianites to you. He will hand the Midianites to you. They will pass away as the 38,000 strong of them as they are. They will all be made to clash against each other. There be so much discombobulation and confusion in the camp that they will turn the sword on each other, be scattered, and all of Israel will chase them out into the outskirts and ultimately kill even all of their kings. It was the Midianites. Now I am totally convinced that it's Midian. It was not Syria. Syria was the one that came up against Israel, whereas Gideon was in Judah, not so much in Israel. Israel was the one that was like knocked out first, right? Type establishment thing, but Judah was where it is that Gideon was at, and like utter like total and the Lord made sure that Judah is maintained while Israel is taken over by the Syrians, right? The Lord made sure that that's a thing because his people always had to be a people, and they always had to have a land that they got restored to. It would only be in 40 AD when all that which Israel is just got raided and ransacked, because there they rejected the Messiah. There they rejected their Messiah. So whatever remnant might have existed prior to the destruction of the temple in 40 AD and essentially the elimination and the final scattering of the Jews in 40 AD. That happened because the Jews had now had Jesus and rejected him. So that's why finally, once and for all, they just lost both Judah and Israel. They lost both. Basically, I think they were split into two, the northern part and whatnot. After rejecting their Messiah, that's when everything of theirs fell apart. Everything of theirs fell apart, proving therefore Jews ought to see that as a sign or a hint that Christ was the Messiah, proving that they had rejected their Messiah. No longer was there a remnant among them worthwhile to be called a remnant, because they all rejected their Messiah. There was no one truly righteous among them anymore. There was no longer anyone among them truly righteous that was maintained as an Orthodox Jew that has rejected the Messiah, and all the Messianic Jews were driven out, indeed, out of Israel, right, and out of Judah by persecution. And they ended up where? They ended up in Turkey. They ended up where? They ended up in Greece. They ended up where? That's why the early Bible essentially was written by the apostles in Greek, because they got the Messianic Jews were so badly persecuted and rejected that they were now living in the outliers of Israel as opposed to actually in Israel. And so therefore there was no longer a need to be out here maintaining Solomon's temple. There was no longer a need to out here be maintaining them as a people. That's when they got scattered across the world, and then they got lambasted by a Holocaust and this and the other. Later on, as time progressed, they went to Spain and were kicked out. They were this and that. Yeah, that's when all that started to happen. And so therefore Jews need to look at their history and see that we lost our everything after rejecting Jesus merely 40 years later. And is 40 not the number of God's judgment? It's giving da-na-na-na, right? These are things that ought cause people to actually be popping their eyes open and whatever, like peeling them like a banana split. Okay, cool beans and banana peels. Now let's go back to Africa de Sud, ne? These dirty streets down here in these underbellies. In these underbellies, there's Palestinians landing in strange airports. They're being put in our societies, but they're going to make like a silo, like a 15-minute city, and they're going to create very extreme Islam, because in South Africa we don't have extreme Islam. The kids here that grew up Muslim are not radical at all. So the only way to radicalize Islam in a country that has Muslims but that are not radical is to bring radicals from overseas. They have to come from Iran. They have to come from Lebanon. They have to come from Gaza. They have to come from places where there's very extreme Islam in order to basically wreak havoc in the lives of all of these other namby-pamby Muslims. You know how in Sudan there's like whole-scale massacre of non-radical Muslims. Those are the tribal wars that are happening amidst Muslims. The very radical Muslims are killing the ones that are secular, like the ones hanging here in South Africa. So essentially they're going to be a snare even up the nostrils of very secular Muslims in this country that I grew up with, out here doing whatever they want to do and not even really truly being too serious altogether as Muslims. So everybody in South Africa is just gonna suffocate from the aeroplane. Everybody in this country is gonna suffocate from the one little aeroplane that became 5 aeroplanes worth of babies, and then that became 10 aeroplanes, and then oh my goodness, it's like giving a whole entire island worth of airplanes. Like they've taken over all of Cape Town. Listen, they're out here hanging out all over Joburg. Listen, they're like a rash on the skin of JHB. I really don't know what I'm doing over here. They're meshing into Limpopo like they're part of the dust. I can't count them all. I can't count them all. After all, did God not say that he's gonna make Ishmael a great nation? Oh, now they're in my nation. I'm burning on my Ishmaelites way, guys. I warned you. Nina met your African spirituality nonsense, rubbish, sansin. Alla y'all met your rubbish, Mamela. I'm trying to get on you. Your lack of love for the Lord and everything. Your lack of adoration for the King has made you pride yourself like the chick at YouTube in being covered by the South African deep state that's not so much going to appropriate ancestral worship amidst black people as the thing that you ought be embracing over here. Now you don't have the clamor of jihad, the clamor of Muslims. You don't have the noisome insistence of Islam, neither the camaraderie of Islam. to actually achieve a conversion of South African blacks to African spirituality. You don't have it in you to convince people like me to take up witchcraft and ancestral worship and black culture. You don't have, like I said, you don't have their clamor, you don't have their clandestine, you don't have their loud, gongy, noisome, and sonorous efficacy. You don't have the theater. You just don't have the theater of Muslim prosperity to conquer, precisely because you have no unity. And I said that time and time and time again, that black folk, what you're trying to do and your harassment of white people and your this and your that is only ever going to entrench Islam in the country. And listen, within mere weeks, aeroplane, except it's like 50 aeroplanes really if you look in prospect, if you look futuristically, if you look in foresight, oh reasonable man, you ought to have foreseen that jihad is coming to the country. So your crazy president that out here be raising up a case of the ICJ only for us to find out that Iran paid him to do that. Now we're a proxy of Iran, and since we're a proxy, oh, aren't we willing to go and grab all the Palestinians that Egypt rejected, all the Palestinians that all these other Muslim nations encircling that ecosystem didn't want, but we took them? We took them. We took them. We took them. We couldn't see eye. Remember that? Yeah. Remember that song? We couldn't see eye to eye. So this is goodbye, bye, 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 bye. Yeah, I'm leaving. The Lord has a thing about extracting his babies that be warning all these days about all these things, calamities becoming. But I get on night like Nehemiah, we are building the wall in the name of Jesus Christ, but you have no interest in rebuilding the wall. So God will incubate us as very comfortable exiles in other countries while you endure a volume 2.0 of apartheid South Africa. Then you will finally regret it, because even you're a lady Pandora's daughter, like random foreign minister lady person, her child Agazingeni that was in South Africa. There is a cancer spreading in this nation, and these people have so squandered the nation's resources that, given that our own money is not in our own hands, given that asisena mali and nabwabena mali, they are taking bribes from foreign countries and they are fashioning themselves in the image of very fascist dictatorships and communist nations that are wreaking havoc in the countrymen of those countries, and they're trying to wreak the same kind of havoc in South Africa. And your president is not pushing back. For what reason? Listen, don't nobody know. Your nation leaders are not pushing back. For what reason? Listen, don't nobody know. And so because our leaders are not pushing back, ultimately what would be the wholesale takeover of a country that should have been one of the healthiest to live in Africa, and in terms of freedoms, will start not to become as uncomfortable as Nigeria or Sudan, or in particular evangelicals, religious groups, or non-Muslims. Everybody is going to suffocate under the tyranny of Ishmael. Everybody will be against you and you will be against everybody. You're going to be a wild, wild man, O Ishmael. Thus saith the Lord to Hagar in the wilderness over there when she had run away. That was a prophecy given about her son. He's going to be very wild, and everybody going to be against him, and he's going to be against everybody. So given that that's Ishmael over there, he's going to go pluck out the hairs of Hindus, he's going to go pluck out the hairs of Christians, he's going to make chicken skin out of white folk, black folk, everybody. They are going to wage war against us insofar as they can become enough. First they have to be many, and then they have to pick a controversy with non-radical Muslims, try to radicalize them. If they don't become radical, they will then start to get basically tribal wars where they're clashing and butchering fellow Muslims that aren't as radical. And then, of course, coming for me, Karabo, right? They're going to come for the Christians. They're going to come for Nina, Rabish. You are infidels, I'm sure. Even in my eyes, you're infidels. You ancestral worshipping baboons in your little cocoon, thinking that you're going to live in this silo. Ingati, you are. Baibitang Disatap or Rania in South Africa, the only little apartheid state in a whole country that has overcome apartheid. You are Rania, witches. That's who you is. That's who you be. That's who you. Bang, 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 bang. That's who you be, babe. I said that's who you is. Honey sugar plum bumblebee, yeah. Okay, cool beans and bananas. So seeing as that's what's happening in South Africa, and seeing as now we forecast your future, say hello Islam and goodbye Christianity and goodbye even ancestral worship. Goodbye, like whatever. Let us talk about why it is that you're going to get taken over by Islam. Herein lies the veracities and the evidences. Helena Lerato, you are causing disaster. The thing you are is too dystopian. The thing you're causing is too dystopian. Listen, let's speak with a somber tone now. Enough with the jogosity. Enough with the bounce in my step and my bubbliness. Enough with the lightheartedness. Let's get gongy serious. What the hell, black people? You are killing black people. And now you're spreading over into other ecosystems. I had a dream. I was locked outside. your house. Let us tabulate ditoro tse modimo ang bontshitseng ka lena ha le kopane, cause you think you're Minamu in cow, Minamu and a cow. Little cows eating fodder, otherwise known as Christians. Mamilang Minamu Lasing. Mamilang ne Lasing. My name is Karado Shishlokele Shlungwani. I was born in 1984 on the 8th of August on a cruel winter morning because of the fact that I was born at all. Because like Job, you've made me hate the day that I was born. So it was a cruel winter Wednesday morning when I was born. Only because South Africa has made my life a living nightmare. And those people that have made my life a living nightmare are black, and I miss them are my own family members. There is absolutely toodly no avenue of any kind of reasonable activity on their part where I am concerned, because they're thinking about nothing but, again, cow eating fodder, or your spit is just kind of like, mingled in there. Minamu and cow. Minamu starts with me, precisely because you're always thinking about me. Your name is a cow that starts with me. Minamu and cow. Minamu and cow. You're a cow whose name starts with me. Eating fodder all the day long. Otherwise known as your own family members, own friends. Oh, Minamu the cow. A cow there for the eating your steak. And ultimately you're going to be on the plate of Islam. I'm eating meat. Namu and cow. You're going to be devoured by Islam like the cow that you are. You're just meat. And the thing that's going to make Islam conquer a black majority is their camaraderie, which you lack. I had a dream I was locked outside my own country. I had a dream I was pregnant by a spawny, nasty devil worshipper, and I never worked a day again in my life. He said you'll never buy anything else, cause I'm here to reign. I had a dream of, in particular, this Bud Madlisa and his dad, some tycoon and some CEO guy, father-son pair. And I had a dream of his dad, Mpandane, and like he's like half bird or whatever. He's just really ugly. Anyway, he's half a bird. He's a spawn. And his particular taste of spawn is involved with fowl, like some bloomed fauna. A bird. Poultry. He is a bird. He is mixed with a bird. And that random bird. Thoroughly, I don't know why, being mixed with a bird, he don't got no hair, but he ain't got no hair, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, whatever. And because I keep on insulting Mpandani, any kind of like seemliness, when I get a side piece, a wife, another wife, listen, a lot of stuff. But he doesn't have nearly as many STDs as his child. And this guy said to himself, because he was offended that I insulted his Mpandani, even though you're such a furry animal that you should have more hair than that. But nonetheless, it turns out that from the DNA of the bird that he's mixed with, he didn't inherit just like hairiness, at least not up top. That rando was like, she will never work again. Oh, what is it, Big Daddy? You're so mad, you're so angry. Oh, you're blowing steam out your nostrils. Listen, you are red, you're fuming, your eyes are all like red. Oh, what is it? He's so mad. Oh, and now when he's angry, like his little forehead like glistens in the sun because he starts to sweat. You guys, eh? You should start squawking. I get while sweating. Exercise actually makes hair grow. That's a thing, right? I can give you hair tips. Like, I'll be out hooking you up with like a paste, Greek over there, but I'm not gonna touch you because I told you, avoidance is key. But like this guy that cannot like exploit that all his pod bird, he should at least, seeing as he can't be with like a head of hair, at least squawk, like do something birdie or fly. Spread your wings and prepare to fly. You have become a butterfly. Oh. But like instead of a butterfly, you a bird. The Muntulana is unredeemable. He can't get saved, and it's what I'm busy talking about right now. There are a whole bunch of minions working for people that can't even get born again, and their country is going to be unrecognizable, and one day they're going to be living in caves because of Islam, just like the Israelites before Gideon was raised up by the Lord in dealing with the Midianites. Mpandlani guy walona. He should start squawking like a bird. He's a bird, I get it. You will never work again unless you're my PA. Spread your wings and prepare to fly. You have become a birdie high. Oh, go and get yourself. Redeem yourself from the hand of the Lord. Oh, squawking, I dare you. Fly out of the hand of Christ, yo. Redeem yourself from the thumpy foot of Jesus. Yo, I am daring you to squawk at Jesus. Squawk at Christ, because you be squawking at his disciple. Go and wave your shiny bandana to the Lord and cause heat, like the way that you would grab like a magnifying glass to the sun and would burn a piece of paper. You be out there burning me like that piece of paper with your bandana. Do that to the Son of Righteousness that comes with healing in his wings. And see if you get anything good, because listen, my God will cross the oceans for me. He will go and bring me the moon. He will be my hero, my strength. Anything I need, I will be his baby. That's my king. And my melanin, random rubbish squawking bird or with attitude before a holy God that don't nobody be delivered from the hand of. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. Half man, half bird, he's squawking rando one chimbwam bandani. In his hand, cannot defy the decree of the Lord. In his hand, he's just a tiny little minion in the hands of jihad. He's got the whole world in his hand. The Hebrews were handed over to the Midianites. They were handed over to, in the days of Gideon, and they were handed over to, I believe, the Syrians in the days of Deborah, and they were handed over, or is it the Philistines in the days of Deborah? I stand corrected. And they were handed over to Moab. Not handed over, sorry. But they were facing, no, those ones were not guilty or whatever, right? And they were handed over to the Babylonians in the days of King Manasseh, etc. Because of, listen, say it to me now, drum roll. Idolatry. Yeah. Hey? Worshipping false gods, having started out as a God-fearing nation. And then you go and you turn aside to idols and all these weirdo little things that you be out here doing, hey? And then you're squawking as a bird, because you know how to like breathe underwater? No, it's your son that can breathe underwater. Yeah, I don't know what you can do in particular, oh big daddy guy. All that arrogance of yours, oh idol. Understand there was a time when the Philistines put their nasty, gnarly, like monstrous, like idol statue thing in front or next in the same room as the Ark of the Covenant. And the next morning, that statue, its head was cut off and its like limbs were chopped. You're an idol worshiper, and on top of that, you're a mixed breed. You're like some kind of a strange hybrid. And do you think that you can chill before the Ark of the Covenant and not have God chop your head, chop your limbs, and chop your biena? He's got the whole world in his hands, including that bird inside your body. In his hands, you are a nasty little hybrid that can't stand against the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're not going to be able to stand. Hey, squawk! I dare you. Squawk! Listen, squawk! Because you're squawking at my God and saying that this God who's got the whole world in his hands, in whose hands where there are pleasures everlasting, and who rocks up with his reward, is somehow subject to your witchcraft that makes sure that I will never work again a day in my life. I'll never work a day ever again. I'm going to be so poor. Listen, I'm gonna cry. My God got everything in his hands, and you're a squawking idolatrous bird that is chilling before the temple of the Holy Spirit, who is his disciples, and so therefore you're gonna die. You're an idol in and of yourself. People worship you. They're so scared of you back, Saba. But land, they shake like leaves. Like you're a tempest in a blizzard. Yeah, but whatever it is that has caused God's people on the ground to shake before an idol, they're gonna get over it, because after all, when you're living in caves as a result of Islam, when you can't out here enjoy your own city, when all your food is now halal, like, hey, listen, the squawking bird, we don't know what's going on over there. It was a mistake, it was an error. It was a problem. But guess who's going to discover it was a problem? Only the babies. You little bambinos, you Gen Alphas. They're the only ones that are going to realize that their parents were such heinous idol worshippers. And that's why Islam took the country over. But Islam will have so ruined us, they will have so wreaked havoc in our lives, that ultimately living in caves, just like Seth, from that day, they will finally call on the name of the Lord. But as for you millennials, listen, your country's done for. As for you Gen X's, listen, your country's done for. As for you later Gen Z's, country's done for. The Lord is giving the land over to very young Gen Z's and Gen Alphas, and then some. Alpha, beta, whatever. The rest that come after that. Delta. Gen Delta. Listen, how long can you just keep on using a Greek alphabet here? Why not just one? Okay, whatever. Generation 1. That would have been so easy. But you be out joking up Alpha because you fancy. Anyway, whatever. Go with your Gen Alpha. Beta, I think Delta's the next one. After that, listen, I don't know. Omega? I think that's Z. No, by the time Omega comes, listen, the Lord would already rocked up. Maybe at Gen Omega, that's the second coming of the Lord. You tell me. Generation Omega, that's the second coming of Christ. It might be. It just makes sense. Anyway, whatever. So given that he's got the whole world in his hands, he's got the whole wide world in his hands, he's got the shiny little furry in his hands, and it's an actual animal and not a human being with kitty litter. In the bathroom, I'm lying around. Listen, black people, I had a dream of one of your little half bird, half whatever that are very angry at me for refusing a job with him, so he can just ogle at me and bewitch me from my desk after making me his personal assistant, even though Papa I've got better skills than that. And akibato sebeletsa wampandlane waskobo ongang otongselang abangkuba after ke still mohana, because the Holy Spirit's to be out coursing through my veins. Ew. That's why him and his baby boy are gonna die together. Hey, he's like Saul and one of Saul's sons in battle. Bashona and Dawong, you know how Saul and his children died in the same battle? This Oki's gonna die with his son. Now, the dad did a spell saying she will never work ever again. There was a spell that he did, that I will never ever work again. And then he did another spell where he said that I will never mind work again, okay? But buy again. So it doesn't matter that I'm unemployed, but nobody's ever gonna give me money. He essentially came against my family to leave me so high and dry and out on the limb that I won't even have anything to be able to buy again. I won't even have anything to basically buy jewelry from Temu. I will never buy again. My family members are not the most pristine of people. My family members are not the baddest and the cutest. But just like I said earlier, in black families, not enough to actually be setting people up. You come up against each other, you bash heads, but nonetheless, your children are fat, and everybody in the community is fat, because at least Ugogo will make sure that you've got food in your stomach, and at least Mama will give you 200 rands to send your CV out in the market, even though you're feeling that's 200 randa inyani. They will give you just enough to get by, because they don't want to have to deal galifu. They don't want to have to deal the guilt on their consciences of one of their family members just dying out there somewhere. So abantu abamnyama leave each other out on a limb and refuse to give each other economic freedom, but they will not let each other starve. They at least got that. Listen, there's something salvageable about you. And look, herein lies this squawking animal, half bird, half human hybrid. Already trying to take even that from whatever it is that we've already lost as black people. You've already lost Ubuntu. You've already lost basically having the back of your fellow man who are living economically viable. As a whole village, as a whole community, you are so violently competitive that you are making sure that people are not stronger than you, bigger than you, have a bigger, better job, a bigger car, bigger house, bigger, better husband. That much you are competing and making sure that you keep each other nice and lowly, but you can't starve each other to death now because apparently you're not that mean, right? Well, herein lies one of your little monsters, because things get really bad. When you're deeply involved in the occult, you go from bad to worse. Now he wants to take even that away. Now there are people who are actively trying to make my family leave me out on such a limb that Abantubayiti will no longer listen, be content with me having black A1 so high and dry that ultimately I'll just pass out and pass away. Any kind of sense, they don't treat me any kind of normal and any kind of right? Mara the random zena have made sure at least and every so often bang shapaka Mara, they will never ever give me financial independence. Abusive. They'll never give me economic independence. They'll never enable my cause to get independence. But they will be content every so often to part ways with 1,000 rantanyana. Hey, that guy's trying to take even that away. I mean, do you see how you're just gonna break apart until you're no more? Because witchcraft does work, yella. If at all, people feel as if the spirit of Christians is so strong, or the spirit of certain people, even though they're not Christians, is so strong, it's so sterk, so as Hercules, she's so unbreakable. Woo, the moon, she's Herculean, she's Hulk-esque, she's Achillean, she's Superman without kryptonite. Listen, oh strong. If at all, some people just don't budge in spite of your witchcraft because it makes you so demon-possessed. Upon Foster, you will give a woman excruciating headaches until she takes too much medication for her to be any kind of efficacious spiritually when she is praying. And then you will try to cause her cat to die, like the random beefy, big, chunky cheese cop lady that with her friend out here mess with my cat. I'll get to that dream. But you will also try to make my family members abandon me whole scale, to a point where I'm just going to be something just passing away at the back of my mom's house. ukuthi bazogcina nje fela ba breakile down umoya khona because there was a funny smell komurago and we haven't seen Karabo in 3 days. That level of neglect and abandonment to a point where ngizotholwa mina isidumbu sami sesinuka. They're trying to get that done. It's bad enough that black people don't care about each other's prosperity, but my goodness, at least they keep each other fed. At least they make sure that their children get fat, and at least nobody out here has to be struggling with a kid that's not getting an education. They are too defeatist to be strong enough to form an ancestral worshipping caliphate like the Muslims, but at least ain't nobody out here gonna get too emaciated. Nobody's getting any kind of anorexic. Not on my watch. I'll give Karabo all the kotas of the. If anything, I've been complaining that my rings don't fit. But now this guy's like, she will never mind, work again. Oh, you think you can't control me, Joboa? Brother, I served a gorada Unabasa. What's happened with you, eh? At mean I'll never work again. Oh. Except listen, you're not exactly Trump, are you? You're not even Cyril Ramaphosa, you're just some big business idiot. One Bandani that's gonna die very soon.